Kidnapper mama spared prison with last-minute plea, but there's a terrible catch. In a last-minute plea deal, an Illinois mother indicted for kidnapping her daughter was spared prison by accepting a last-minute plea deal. As potential jurors waited in the lounge to be questioned in voir dire, the mom, who was facing up to 7 years in prison, gave in and took the plea. Unfortunately, there is a terrible, if not unpredictable, catch. She is prohibited from seeing her daughter, who is now almost 18 years old, until she turns 22. We reported on her story when she was caught in 2023. It was presumed a custody crisis case, but there was little information about it at the time. This case has gotten much national attention, first after the mother fled in 2017, then when she was caught 6 years later, and now that she's taken the plea. As usual, not one media outlet told her side of the story at either juncture. It's incredible how reporters lose all objectivity when it comes to mothers kidnapping their children. Really, it is so obvious a mother would not sacrifice everything unless there was good reason. But reporters always portray mom as the bad guy, and it being a wonderful thing she was caught and the child handed back to the father. Wonder if that is because the OBN Old Boy Network controls MSM. This mother had wanted to go to trial ever since she was caught 2.5 years ago to be able to tell the jury and the world that she had fled to protect her child from the father, and that the custody order was invalid and unconstitutional. More on that later, but first, her story. Heather met Ryan in 2003 while attending the Art Institute of Atlanta in Georgia. They dated for several years but never married. They moved to Illinois. Heather would later report that Ryan was physically and emotionally abusive. This is corroborated by friends and family. The emotional abuse included isolation from friends and family, rage directed at her, manipulation, gaslighting, coercive control, bullying, etc. Kayla was born in 2008. Shortly after she was born, Heather had had enough of Ryan's abuse and did not want Kayla around it, so she left him. He would only occasionally visit her, but was never involved in parenting. Heather moved back to Georgia, but she would bring Kayla to see him when she returned to visit family. Then Ryan remarried. What often happens when a new wife comes on the scene is men file for custody. They have someone else to take care of the child, and they avoid paying child support, or get it. Sometimes the new wife has an agenda herself. So, in 2016, Ryan applied for sole custody. Enter the family court villain, Kane County Judge John Dalton. Judge Dalton ordered 50-50 and threatened Heather that he would give sole custody to Ryan if she did not move back to Illinois in 2 weeks. Heather managed to pack up their lives and move back to comply with this unreasonable order. Dalton possibly did not even have jurisdiction since they had been living in Georgia for years. After the 50-50 custody began, Kayla started telling Heather about emotional abuse and neglect by both her father and stepmother. She said she was always hungry, so they were not feeding her enough. She was also afraid of them and begged Heather to not have to go on visits. Heather was powerless to grant her child's wish or protect her. To make matters worse, her attorney had not been representing her well, and the GAL guardian ad litem was not representing Kayla's best interests either, as usual. Then came the pretext for giving Ryan full custody. Although Heather had permission to text with Kayla while at her father's, she sometimes emailed her, since Ryan would read their texts. Judge Dalton deemed this emailing disrespecting his court and used that to justify executing what was the agenda all along: give the father sole custody and assign child support to Heather. She was allowed every other weekend visitation. Dalton also gave Ryan total decision-making power and prohibited Heather from taking Kayla to doctors or therapists without Ryan's approval. This is a common tactic that serves to cover up abuse. This major custody revision was made despite there being no significant change of circumstances, which is required by law. nor was there any evidentiary hearing or any due process at all. At this point, Heather finally found an attorney who would actually do his job. A motion to vacate Judge Dalton's illegal orders was filed, citing laws he had violated, but the hearing on that motion was not scheduled for any time soon. Not to mention Judge Dalton would most likely just dismiss it anyway, since family court judges can do whatever they want. Kayla was so unhappy living with her father and stepmother. She strongly resisted going back to them after being with her mom. When asked, she said she wanted to leave town to get away from them. So, on the 4th of July, 2017, Freedom Day, Heather made the courageous and life-altering decision to go into hiding with Kayla, who was 9 at the time. After all, that was the only way she could assure her daughter's safety and happiness. They moved out west to Oregon. Kayla was so happy being away from her abusers. Heather was also happy with her decision, even though life on the run was not easy. This enabled the DA to charge her with felony kidnapping. Missing persons organizations could now publicize the abduction. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children placed her on their list. The popular series Unsolved Mysteries showed the NCMEC flyer on their photo roll call at the end of one of their segments. At some point, Heather and Kayla, now a teen, moved back east. They settled in Asheville, North Carolina. While out shopping for clots for Kayla at a thrift shop in May of 2023, a salesperson recognized them and called the police. Heather was arrested, and Kayla handed over to her father, her owner, without question. She was 15 years old, but had zero say in what would happen to her. Heather was indicted for felony kidnapping, the same charge as if a stranger had grabbed a random kid off a street, rather than custodial interference, which it should have been. She was released after posting the excessive $250,000 bond. She's had to wear an ankle monitor ever since. Completely unsurprisingly, Heather's assigned public defender facilitated the sabotage of the criminal case against her, along with the criminal court judge, Judge David Clement. Heather wanted a speedy trial, but Judge Clement ignored that. The case was deliberately dragged it out until Kayla was a few months shy of 18, so it could be used to stop them from having visits. It seems so crazy that it has taken 2 whole years to get to your trial. Almost like they purposefully dragged it out to be closer to Kayla turning 18 before they even addressed any of it. The thing is, if a defendant is not afforded a speedy trial, the remedy is a dismissal of charges. But her public defender would not file the motion. He also refused to present her affirmative defense that she fled because Kayla was being abused and she had good reason to flee. He would not get evidence or witnesses in that supported her case and kept the most important witness, Kayla, from testifying. He would also not allow in testimony that Judge Dalton had violated multiple laws in giving sole custody to Ryan. Additionally, he never attempted to get the kidnapping charge reduced to custodial interference. That would have been a lesser crime and much less prison time. He even said she could not tell the jury that she had custody when she left. He was so blatantly corrupt and biased, Heather tried to get rid of him. My public defender isn't going to properly defend me. He has refused to raise any of the relevant and exculpatory facts. But Judge David Clement wouldn't allow it. After all, they were working together to sabotage Heather's case and ensure conviction or a plea deal on their terms. Meanwhile, Kayla was sent to a therapist for brainwashing to convince her that her mom is the bad guy and the father and stepmother the good guys. I have serious concerns about what therapist Debbie Conley may have been telling Kayla, as I feel her approach is inappropriate and potentially damaging. And to employ the carrot and stick, threaten her, that if she doesn't cooperate, she will not be able to see her mother. And if she does, she will, which is a disgusting lie, because she would not see her either way. Also, throw in the threat that her mother will go to prison if she dares has contact with her. I was Kayla's primary caregiver, and support until she was 15 years old. Her father wanted little to do with her when she was younger. Now, the system is doing everything it can to erase the bond we built and punish us both, just for loving each other. This tactic of keeping kids away after they turn 18 is often employed when there is little time to get a teen under the father's control. In other words, if they are likely to return to their mother when they age out. More time is needed for the final refreezing stage of the brainwashing, in which the indoctrination is set. The first stage is unfreezing, ungrounding, is the traumatizing of children by being taken away from their mother. This makes them vulnerable to the second stage, the indoctrination process, when lies are implanted into the teen's mind. Mother bad, father good. This is also when the trauma bond with the perpetrator is created. The first and second stage can be accomplished in the first year, but for the lies to really take hold, you ideally need a few more years. Hence, 22 years old should do it. By the time of trial, Heather could see the writing on the wall. She thought she should probably take the plea, but it prohibited her from seeing Kayla until she was 22. She was torn. She had major health issues caused by the trauma of having lost her child and thought she might not live long in prison. The strain of this situation has taken a serious toll on my body and mind. I simply do not have the strength to withstand incarceration. In trying to get her to take the plea, her attorney lied and said that Kayla could petition to get visits with her after she turned 18, which would be in January. She was facing up to 7 years in prison, and it was obvious the judge, prosecutor, and her own attorney were making sure she would be convicted. In the end, she chose to take the plea, although there was not really much of a choice. The sabotaging of her case meant she would probably be convicted and have to spend many years in jail, in which she could not see Kayla anyway. Takeaways. It is a crime in many places to brainwash a vulnerable person, referred to legally as undue influence, and it is a crime to threaten, coerce, or make false representations in the process. This means fathers, stepmothers, judges, and therapists who engage in the brainwashing of vulnerable children are committing a crime when they subject children to this coercive persuasion. Of course, this crime will never be charged, as it is part and parcel of the patriarchal program to empower fathers. However, mothers and children can sue in civil court. A child, now adult, has just filed a suit against a therapist. We may do a story on it, and leave a comment if you'd like that. The keeping of children away from mothers after they turn 18 is not uncommon. In another incredible case we covered on Facebook back in 2014, a condition of probation was that the mother would leave the county and not see her daughter until she turned 22. When Dara was caught after a record-setting 12 years in hiding in Mexico, her daughter was 17 and needed more time to be brainwashed. The case we covered last week, Mom gets 15 years after fleeing to protect son, along with Heather's case, demonstrate that whether the kidnapping mother chooses to go to trial or take a plea, it makes no difference as far as contact with her children. The mother is put in a lose-lose situation. The only question is, how does she prefer to lose? By going to prison and not seeing her child, Ren, or by staying out of prison and not seeing her child, Ren? The entire criminal process in custody crisis cases is a sham, just like the family process. Prosecutors, public defenders, and judges collude to get the desired outcome, disempower, and destroy the mother for having dared to challenge male authority in the family, and most importantly, to keep mothers away from their children. This is nothing but a game to them. They don't care about the emotional harm they're causing by keeping us apart for so long. When will women realize that they have no power to keep the children they bear and primarily nurture? that the father will be enabled to take them away if he so pleases, thanks to the family court system being designed to empower them? With family courts in place, having children is like playing Russian roulette. You have a very high chance of losing them if the father decides he wants to take them, and greater than 50% of parents separate or divorce. Those are not good odds. So keep eyes on the prize. Abolishing family court, or at least getting custody cases out. But that will not happen until enough women come to realize that the family court system is rigged against them. Until enough recognize this truth and rise up together to end the custody crisis. Join the Women's Coalition, where we are demanding a new system. womenscoalition.org. That's our custody crisis story for today. Please like, share, and comment to help spread the word about the crisis of women losing custody of their children.